Nathan, you ready? Okay, it is 7 p.m. We'll call the regular monthly meeting of the Columbia City Planning Commission to order and have roll call.
Chip Hill.
Present.
John Kissinger.
Here.
Don Langeloh. Jennifer Romano. Here. Nicki Venable. Here. Dennis Warnick.
Here.
Dan Weigold.
Here.
Larry Weiss.
Here.
Patrick Zickgraf.
Here. There are no minutes, right? Administration of oath to witnesses. If anyone wants to talk tonight, ask questions about anything that comes before the board, you need to stand and take your oath, and I think Nathan will deliver the oath.
Okay, so yeah, because Don's not here yet. So, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth in these matters tonight? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Any old business?
No.
Okay. New business 24-C-REZ-1. Bitler Investment Venture III LLC requests an amendment to the Columbia City zoning map to reclassify 4.6 acres of property from the R1 Single Family Residential District to the GB General Business District. The subject property is located on the east side of the 1000 block of South State Road 9, just south of Radio Road. Nathan?
Thank you, Mr. President. So going to the slides here. The property in question tonight is located on the southeast corner of State Road 9, Radio Road / South Whitley Street. Not sure exactly whether that's the appropriate name, but I think it's kind of Whitley Street extended, so we'll call it that. Zoned R1, single family residence currently, approximately 4.5 acres, a little over 4.5 acres total size, including the right-of-way for State Road 9. The request is to rezone to GB General Business with the intention of development for retail, service, commercial. So generally the uses that are allowed in GB. There isn't a specific plan at this point, as I understand it. The petitioner can explain more what they've been looking at. Outlined in the table there and in your written staff report are the surrounding uses. It's a very eclectic mix. You've got R3 to the north, you've got R3 and R1 to the east, being a manufactured home and field, general business, and R1 to the south, being an existing truck repair business, and then a future field for development as part of the school. School plans, I think, still to do some sort of ball field down there. And then to the west and northwest, you've got, again, commercial, which is owned by the city as part of the overall wastewater treatment plant. You also have industry and institutional facilities, generally speaking, wastewater treatment plant, the fire station, and highway department are all on the west side of the Blue River there. So it's, again, a lot of different uses going on, a lot of different zoning districts in a very small area surrounding this property. Going to the aerial views for reference, highlighted there in light blue is the subject site. And again, you can see the different uses surrounding it. Historic residential to the northeast, manufactured home to the east, ag to the general east, the school there to the south, wastewater treatment to the west. Farther west, you've got newer residential and then industrial, humane shelter, highway department, and so on. So closer view for a little bit more detail reference. Oblique view, again, this is from March of this year. You're looking east in this case, so you can kind of get the lay of the land. The overall zoning map, again, just depicting where all of the different zoning districts are. The pink area I didn't mention over there on the right-hand side is business, and that was a rezoning done for the architectural studio over there off of 50 East. And then in case we need it, this is a bit of a little hard to see on the screens, but I can zoom in if this is needed. But this shows the topography, floodplains, utilities, and the rights of way here, and of course in the center is the subject property. It is noted in the written staff report about this green line, which is a force main that runs out to SDI, and basically on the east side, that size of force main is a 10-inch force main, which is pretty sizable for force main sewer. But it does constrict some of the ability to tie this site with anything farther east. So as you look at the comprehensive plan map, it might be suggested that this site ties in with the property to the east that is currently agricultural. But I would suggest that, one, because of the difference in land ownership, and two, because of that infrastructure that kind of separates them naturally, these properties really could be treated and viewed separately. So whether this is low density residential, as it suggests on the map, or potentially commercial, which is requested, or medium density residential, or public even, any of those surrounding uses might be equally entertained because this is, again, more of a standalone property. You'll also note that this property is not yet annexed. I believe the petitioner has started those conversations in order to facilitate infrastructure. You do have sewer and water in the immediate area. There may be some things that need to be done to serve the entire site, but of course that's why we have development plan review. Going to the review criteria then, I don't have a lot to say. The comprehensive plan I just mentioned, and I mentioned the surrounding uses and structures. The desirability for this land as commercial probably is there. You do have State Road 9, which has a lot of traffic. Whether it would be comparing commercial versus residential, this small site at 4.5 acres for residential probably wouldn't be quite as desirable as something like commercial, again, because of proximity to State Road 9, because of the configuration, because of the access. Property values, I don't feel that this would have a significant impact either way on the property values overall. Generally, any development in the city, though, is a good thing, so you could look at it that way. And responsible growth and development. As mentioned in here, there are, and as I just mentioned, there are a couple infrastructure pieces, sewer and water, that are nearby, may need to be worked on and extending. You do have some topography issues. There's a nice slope going up towards Whitley Street. Again, those things can probably be tackled with engineering and design if and when it comes to that time. So with that high-level summary, any questions for me?
No? Petitioner, if you'd like to make your presentation.
Thank you. My name is Matt Shipman, 119 South Main Street here in Columbia City, Indiana. Sitting next to me is Carl Bitler from Bitler Investment Ventures III LLC, who's the actual petitioner today. So I don't have a lot of items to add to what Nathan's already said. I think that his reports are typically pretty thorough, and there's not a lot of detail you guys ultimately need. But that I think Nathan's point that this is an eclectic mix. I think if you look at the zoning in this area, everything from I2 to R3 to R1 is kind of within how far I could throw a rock probably from this property. So as you all know, since your comp plan was done in 2015, the school was a theory contemplated by your comp plan. Now the school is a reality. That changed, obviously, completely the traffic patterns, the growth potentially that is going to happen related to all that traffic. All those high school kids and their parents and the middle school kids and elementary kids now drive south instead of going to the center of our town to go to their schools. And so as a result, whereas this property was probably always a good candidate for commercial development because it is kind of there on the edge of town, surrounded by other general business, ITU, and some R3 kind of development, it's really heightened now, given the fact that the school's there. This is one of the entrances to our city. Carl's vision for this project is something the city will be proud of, to have people pull into and see as one of the first things they see after the Welcome to Columbia City sign on the left. They'll see this nice development on the right. So I think that's important from the comp plan perspective. If you look at, and Nathan, I don't know if you had that future use map that's up, that you had up there, that one right there. So this is the, in your comp plan, you did a future land use map and trying to anticipate the growth, and it talks about that blue area to the south. If the school goes here, this is what we think it looks like. Well, what ended up happening is the school bought that ground. They ended up buying most of that property to the north that is red. And that is the property that really, in the comp plan, had been designated as a good spot for potential commercial development. Because that now is owned by the school, and they're going to build something there, I think, eventually, a play field or something, that opportunity to have that commercial growth in that area to kind of really support the new school with those services that those people that would likely come back and forth to the school, it's not available there anymore. The heavy truck and equipment is still in part of that, but the vast majority of that space is now a big, it's cross country, I think, mainly now, a big field that you all see as you drive out that way. The trail coming and extending along the side of it, with the potential future trail expansion project. This also will fit nicely with that because it'll be in close proximity to that trail, which provides walking access to the people that use that school to grab something to eat in between school getting over and my practice, or the game that night, or band practice, or whatever after school activities may be there, and having that accessibility and being next to that area, I think also makes a lot of sense. So when you look at this map, I think what I would argue is, while the comp plan doesn't contemplate this being commercial use, it contemplated a lot of acreage being commercial use that will not, as long as the school remains in its current site, which will be the rest of my lifetime, will not be commercial use. And so as a result, in trying to find that next best place maybe for some of these services to be, this property seems ideal. As only 4.6 acres, like Nathan said, it is not a very good fit for residential development. Anybody who's going to build an estate, on a 4.6 acre lot, frankly, is not going to live right on top of Highway 9, where a T road is coming right into them, and where the sewage treatment plant is just across the river. And so it really is not a prime candidate for that type of development anyway. The property that is the only R1 property, that is that property to the south, east, like Nathan described, is somewhat kind of segregated based on where that 10-inch sewer main is. That because Carl knew that this project was someday going to be developed, he did ask that kind of jog around his property so it didn't inhibit his ability to develop this property, and now the time is right really to do that. The property right now is just for sale. There is no potential buyer, so at this point we are really just asking for it to be rezoned. When and if a buyer comes through with a plan, and we'll work then with engineers to get a site plan put together, a development plan, work with staff to make sure that meets a lot of what the questions maybe would be. Access, NDOT, lighting, screening, all those things are really not necessarily in front of you today. We'll answer them the best we can, but at this point, There is no wetland on it. That was a question at one point. The Army Corps has now investigated that and found that there is no wetland. So,
The state of Indiana.
yeah, through the in conjunction with the Army Corps. So as a result, that box has kind of been checked, and at this point, we're just asking for rezoning. A couple other small little issues is, to the extent that there are concerns, I'm sure that those concerns would likely be, the residential development in that area. Carl and the developer will be very cognizant of what those concerns maybe would be, and as part of the site plan, we'll make sure that they have a voice, that we listen to them, we understand how the access points may impact those neighbors, and ultimately, without a plan at this point, it's hard to have a real conversation, but once somebody comes forward that hopefully wants to do a ground lease on the property, we'll begin to develop that plan in conjunction with those concerns. I don't have anything else unless you guys have specific questions for me.
Questions? Guys got any questions?
I guess without a project, you can't really ask, like, are you planning to clear all of the trees in that area?
When you can still ask. I'm just not sure I can answer. I mean, I think that we don't know the answer to that, but ultimately there is some slope that goes up towards Whitley Street, as Nathan talked about. That slope may provide some natural screening to the neighbors in that direction. It may make sense to leave some of the trees to also try to do that. But at this point, it
would be up to whoever had that to make that decision.
And obviously, I'm sure whoever comes and says they would like to buy it, they're going to make that contingent upon it coming in front of you and you approving that development plan likely. And so you get another chance to kind of ask those questions.
I just think it's a pretty important area for the entrance to the city, especially now that a lot of traffic is in that area. So I would be really personally careful about how that was being developed. And that it would be something that the community would want or not want.
Anyone else?
Is there any, like, obviously she said it's hard to, as far as like getting a driveway in on that curve, I mean, is it given some thought of how that would be created?
Yeah, obviously that's a conversation we'll have to have with INDOT, sightlines. Thankfully, INDOT picks that fight for you guys. They will force sightlines to be appropriate per their guidelines, because you do have a curve there. Where those entrance and access points will end up having to be will kind of be up to the developer, but also what INDOT tells us is allowable. So I don't know the answer to that, but
You really don't have any idea what you kind of, when you started talking, you made it sound like there was something in the back of your mind that was going to go in there, because you talked about something beautiful that everybody's going to really like coming into town. So
and that's more just from previous.
Aren't having, if after school they had an after school program, they could go, grab a snack or grab something like that. So we're trying to, cater to the south side of the community and find something that's a perfect fit for that.
So Dairy Queen,
I was told as soon as the school left that Dairy Queen would move, but that has not happened. So they're too close to 30. So yeah, trying to find something that fits, there that works with the high school and the middle school and the elementary school is our main driver, and develop the south side of the community.
that also incorporate like extending the bike path?
The bike path is going out for bid at the end of this month, I believe. And so, yes, the bike path should be done within the next year and a half.
Okay.
Going along there.
Anyone else? Thank you, Matt. Anyone wishing to speak against this request? Please come forward, state your name.
I'm not so much, I just my name's up. I'm Deb McClurg. I live at 808 South Whitley Street, and Whitley Street does go around the curve. So you're basically wanting to change it from residential to business so you can get a better price out of the land and be able to put a fast food in there. Is that the clue? Is that where you're both heading here?
A number of uses have been contemplated, and among them are a Ross Dress for Less, a fast food, a fast food restaurant doesn't take 4.5 acres. Also, we've looked at like a small Ace Hardware. We've looked at a number of small community-based stores. So no, the general plan is to get a fast food place.
Well, it was mentioned that something that would work with the schools.
Right.
And actually, the clothing store's not, all that stuff's at the other end, which is not that big a deal because it's like a mile and a half across town.
You have to think about it from the standpoint of up through the sophomore level, parents are going to be driving their kids to school.
Been there, done that.
As you drive your kids to school, you think, maybe I need this. The shopping center has this stuff, has this. So
you're looking for a strip mall.
it's not contemplated. The strip mall that you're talking about is usually, that metaphor usually contemplates a single building along a line.
Mm-hmm.
And this has not been entertained yet at all. We've looked at a number of types of retail that could be enclosed in like 2 or 3 buildings.
Okay. Is it my understanding that when you send out these things, they need to be within 2 blocks of the property announcements? Is that correct?
So the rule is 2 property ownerships deep or 660 feet, whichever is satisfied first,
So-
and we send those out.
Okay,
So,
did you send them all out to the trailer park people?
we
The
send
lower
it
deck?
to the property owner, not to the individual tenants.
What a con! My suggestion would be you send it. You want the people to know what's going on, right?
Well, we don't. We unfortunately, the government records are only for who actually owns the property. We don't have access to each individual tenant, so there's no way that we could do that. Or we could rely. We basically rely on the property owner to forward it on to the tenants.
The property owners in California.
I admit that that's a loophole, I guess. Drawback
Huge.
for sure.
Huge. I own 5 properties close to that. And I would not want to look down my street, because I grew up there, where I'm at. And I don't want to look down the street and see lights on 24/7 because it's a strip mall. It may be a small one, but basically that's what you're telling me. And I don't want to see them on all night. That's why I bought the 2 lots across from me and in front of me, because I didn't want somebody to build storage units and have to look at them all night. And there is a land that goes up, and I don't want it. And I'm telling you now, I don't want an exit on Whitley Street. Because if you can't get it off 9, you're going to be coming off of Whitley. And the trailer park's already got quite a few people on the lower deck, because there's 2 decks, the upper deck and lower deck. My dad built them. So I don't want to see a lot of traffic coming out, because there's a lot of little kids down there. And it goes in cycles. I know kids grow up and then another set of families come in. My suggestion is you table this until you get the people that actually live there, besides me, to say what they would like to see, because they're going to live right beside it. I live.
Well, unfortunately, they don't own the land. If you want to control the land, you got to own the land.
Well,
and
I
see it as like where Jimmy John's is. That's a very nice little 3-unit strip center. I think something like that would look perfect in there. So, I mean,
well, as long as
I understand your
right.
concerns, but you know, this if you're gonna basically keep the city growing and make it inviting. I think something that we do. So
Further, there are ways, and we've done them, there are ways in which you can have night lights on, but they're not interfering with the neighborhood.
Excuse me, for our records, you need to tell your name and address and where you live and so forth.
Carl Bitler. I live in Seymour, Illinois, and Country Road 1100 North, and the zip code is 61817.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Another thing I don't want to see is a business that uses chemicals. I mean, we had enough of that up by the railroad tracks, you know. So, whatever, if ever you rezone this, if you really are caring about the kids across the street of it, at the high schools and stuff, you don't want to have them near chemicals. Because it's easy to say, oh yeah, we want to put a little strip mall in there for the kids. And then when it actually gets sold, then it's a whole different animal. Be like C&R Plating. Because back in the 70s, C&R Plating wasn't supposed to flush their lines. They flushed their lines every night at midnight. And nobody really knew unless you went there.
If
She's asking you a question.
He thinks you're going to make it worse. That's what he's saying.
It's not a question.
You're a lawyer. Yeah, it is. So I guess my thing is, I think you ought to think a little harder on it until they have exactly a plan of what they want to put in there. And then, because once I get one, now that I know you don't let the people know, because they don't own the property, they only rent it there for 20 years. All them people that's down there. I grew up there, and mom and dad owned it for 50 years. I have already been there 24. And what you think is progress may not be progress. You're not in Fort Wayne. You're not trying to build the South Side up to have a business, huge opportunity. Get real. We like having our neighborhood. You're going to end up doing whatever you want. I get that. But I suggest you table this until they come up with something they're actually going to pick. Because it's my understanding the gentleman that used to own it, he passed away and lived in Florida. Is that right? And that's how it got for sale? Because it hadn't been for sale. I was a little kid and it's never been for sale. That guy held on to that property forever. And I'm sure his family put it up for sale. But I would like to have a little more concrete evidence before you jumping from residential to business. And I definitely don't want them coming off on Whitley Street. And I'd like to see the trees stay on that hill. because my kids used to go down there and play in the woods where the hill goes down. And there is a swampy section to it. It may have passed the DNR or whatever for not being swamp land. When you get in there, you're going to be filling stuff in. So if you could, I'd put it off, and because then I'm going to contact everybody in that trailer park and let them, if you really want to know what your people think, I suggest that. I can't think of anything else because you have no idea what you're going to put in here, but you want to change it so you can sell it for more money. I have nothing else at the moment that I can think of. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Do we get the opportunity for 2 minutes? Or is that possible? And I just want to answer a couple of questions. So, first of all, with respect to the notice, there's a sign right on the property. All of these people presumably leave their houses and drive by the sign, so they would see that there's a hearing today. So anyway, it's not just the mailing. You guys all know this. So I'm saying it really more for the crowd, but there is a sign right on the property that says there's a hearing tonight. People don't. Obviously, they didn't care enough to show up tonight, and the other part of it is the idea of we don't want chemicals there, we don't want these sorts of things. Those are the only thing we can do if it's zone general business is those things that are permitted in general business. CNR plating is not permitted in general business. There's a list of very small impact retail and restaurant uses that are permitted in that section. The last really quick thing is the idea of rezoning this property is not so we can sell it for more money. It's because you can't get the right people to look at it if they have to go through and tackle all these hurdles. It's the first step in any real primary development is we get it rezoned so that we can then start marketing it to the companies ultimately that will bring you a site plan where you can have all the conversations that really were raised in her concern. So, thank you.
I do have one question for you. How long has this property been in the Bitler family name?
I mean, I could look on the GIS.
Well, not in the LLC, but I know it's been in like previous members of the Bitler family, from my understanding.
It looks like it went into Bitler Investment Ventures in 2014, but when
It's been in the Bitler family. Originally, on the other side of 9, where you have your industrial going on, was owned by my father and his partner. They sold to the city or whomever. Well, they decided that they'd split up the lots. The one on one side, the Bitler family would take, and the one that's now multi-use, so to speak, the Melchin family would take. So it's been in the family probably since the 80s, early 80s.
Okay, thank you.
Board, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion for the approval of 24C-REZ-1.
I'll second.
Point of clarification, by approval you mean favorable recommendation?
Favorable recommendation.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to make a comment. With all due respect to your concerns, I look at this as an opportunity to basically clean up that area. When people come into Columbia City, you're coming into that look, and you got woods on one side, woods on the other, and then you got a automotive repair places coming in. If we can help beautify that area by having a potential business there, and take care of, if we can, once that plan comes in, and then we can see how the trees can be laid out to help protect the residents a little bit. I think it's a positive. It's a win-win for a little bit of everybody. because I think, we're looking at, Columbia City's growing and there's really no other use for that. I mean, it doesn't make sense to have a residential unit there at this point, and plus it's going to take a lot of work to clean that property up to put anything on it, because it's just heavy wooded area, so it's going to take a considerable amount of work to clean it up, to make it look respectable. And the same way, I just think this is as much as I understand your concerns, I still think that this is a positive move for the property owner and Columbia City at this point.
Okay, motion and second on the floor. Those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Motion carried. Yeah. 7-1, I believe. Okay. Other business findings of fact for Timber's Edge, Section 2.
Yes. So you might recall when we approved the primary plat for Timber's Edge back in May, there was a waiver with that. Waivers need to have findings, and you delegated writing the findings to staff, so that's what was sent out to you. Those findings were based upon the discussion that was had that night and general staff principles. So if you have anything to correct or suggestions to make to that, I will take those. If not, it would be great if you could adopt them.
I make the motion to adopt the findings of fact.
Second?
A motion and a second to adopt the 24-C SUVD-2 findings of fact. Those in favor of the motion, or any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Motion carried. Next item is mayor's discussion.
Hello, Planning Commission. Thanks for having me tonight. I just wanted to check in. First of all, it's been a while since I came and seen you, so I appreciate the work you're doing. One thing, what's on your second? What's on your? Nathan said he has a surprise on the second.
Talk about the thing you want to talk about first, and I'll give you the second slide.
I don't know what thing about the plan. The plan. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
a couple
I'm sorry. So we are planning, as was actually mentioned in the previous discussion here. 2015 was when we approved our comprehensive plan. If you do the math, that means we are 10 years in the comprehensive plan, and we are at a point now that we have accomplished a lot of that comprehensive plan, so it is time to do an update. So we will start an update probably beginning of next year. I anticipate sometime probably mid next year will be maybe mid to fall, if you will, summer to fall of next year is when it will come in front of you. But I did want to give you a heads up that we will be doing a comprehensive plan update. It's about time. Obviously, we've had a lot of things that have happened throughout that time, a lot of those projects that have been accomplished, and so we will certainly be engaging Nathan, probably at least one of you, maybe multiple of you in that update process. We are planning to use the same firm that we used last year, in 2015, just to try to keep some continuity, but again, we will kind of see how the whole RFQ process goes. So,
and that is kind of unintentionally because we selected the September training topic. Comp plans well before that decision was made, but that's why I really want to have as many people there as possible so you guys can see the other 3 comp plans and they can kind of give some feedback on the cities and so on going into this major overall for next year.
Yeah. Obviously, we want the comprehensive plan, our comprehensive plan, to work well with the county's comprehensive plan. Understanding there's clear delineation between those 2 things, but so that is really kind of the major thing. As you are probably all well aware, and you're already doing it, but we have gone to live streaming all of our city meetings, public meetings now, so you can see all those on our city Facebook page. You do not need a Facebook subscription, if you will, or whatever, to watch those videos. But we also upload them onto YouTube on the city's Facebook account afterwards. I think Nathan
This is live streaming on YouTube.
On YouTube,
not
yep.
on Facebook.
Yep, but I believe that I think we're taking those videos over onto our YouTube page, right, in some way, shape, or form.
So, assuming everything worked tonight, it is live streaming on YouTube.
Yes.
It is live streaming on GoToWebinar,
Yeah.
and it's being recorded locally as backup, which I'm glad I did.
That is good. Yes. If you did not know, we do have a power outage happening in downtown Columbia City right now. So that's what the blink was. But in any case, we are trying to next year officially. I think mid next year is when we officially have to start live streaming per state statute. We thought we'd get a jump start on it a year early and make sure we work out all the kinks before we're mandated to do that. So we've been already been doing that for board and council for a long time now, but want to do it for all of our boards and commissions.
Yes. 30?
US 30, okay. I'm here at Nathan's request, I think, at this point. So yeah, US 30, we are getting ready to enter the level 3 assessment. We should be getting that, I'm assuming, sometime this month from our friends at NDOT that will be looking at longer segments along the way that will have multiple intersections, multiple potential interchanges, whatever the case may be. We had the level 2 assessment that came out that gave kind of some of the different options for each of the intersections along US 30 through Whitley County, Columbia City, and obviously outside of that along 30. And we anticipate that the level 3 will really start to hone in on maybe 2 or 3 options per segment. So I anticipate you will see probably Columbia City as a segment. If not, you may see 205 to like 109-ish Line Street as a segment, and then maybe the next section on. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to delineate those, but we are moving forward. I shouldn't say we. NDOT is moving forward on that. As the US 30 Coalition, we continue to advocate for a freeway option purely for the safety and economic viability of that. I'll say the other part of that that's maybe important to know is that as you are all well aware, we have a new governor that will be in January, and so we are pushing very heavily for the current administration to give us some solid projects. So we do know that over the next 2 years, you're going to see Kramer Road and Flaw Road and O'Day Road and some of those roads together. You will see some major changes happening there. An interchange at Flaw Road. I believe a right-in, right-out on Kramer. And then I think O'Day, is going to be an overpass. I don't exactly remember. But point of the matter is those segments were actually left out of the Pell study specifically because they were already on NDOT's agenda. And so we anticipate that will kind of, it won't get us all the way to the Whitley County edge, but it's getting awful close. And so we anticipate that if NDOT follows that trend, which again is if NDOT follows that trend, you will see probably Whitley County projects hopefully being scheduled in the next maybe 7 to 10 years. Who knows? We don't know. A lot of it's based on money, and until they figure out what funding source they're going to fund roads and streets long term, because gas tax is falling off a cliff, we don't know. But we anticipate federal funding in some way, shape, or form.
So to kind of build on that, Brad Allen and I, so county engineer, and I met with NDOT's request last week to talk about SDI 800 East and that area, which I haven't told you yet because it's county stuff. But anyway, long story short, they are basically looking at 800 East, Rapp Road or Butt Road, 700, 600 as another cluster of projects to follow the Leesburg, Felger, I forget what all is included in that, which is the next cluster after the Flaw, etc., that will be coming up in the next couple of years. So 800 and so on is basically being slated to be on NDOT's STIP, so the Transportation Enhancement Program or plan, for about 10 years out if everything lines up very quickly and funding stays fluid.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Columbia City, though, whether that would be the next segment or whether it would skip is kind of the big question.
Yeah, we don't really know. We know that in their own documents, they show Warsaw and Columbia City are the major points of contention when it comes to traffic accidents, when it comes to fatalities. Obviously, property damage, things like that. It's a really interesting chart when you look at it that you don't see a whole lot of spikes, if you will, in accident data, and then you get to the city of Warsaw and you see it, and then it goes down a little bit, and then it goes to Columbia City, and then it goes down a bit. So, again, NDOT knows what the issue is. They've known for a long time what the issue is. The question is what they do with the data and where they go with it. We do anticipate after the Pell study there will be an environmental impact study, which is the next step to get federal funding. We just don't know. We've been told that the Pell will speed up the EIS, so we'll see how that goes. Sometimes, though, we're told things that don't end up becoming true. So, what else do you want me to cover?
Well, I gave you this slide in test it just as a placeholder, but
okay.
You can talk about them if you want.
Nathan's child and my child are both in the Whitley County Children's Choir, and they got to perform a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. So really proud of them. But anyway, so thank you for allowing me to kind of just come up and a couple of different things. If you have questions of me, I'm happy to answer anything that you may have on your agenda or things like that. I am planning to be at the BZA tomorrow night, BZA meeting. We have some things coming up there that we'll talk about tomorrow night, but happy to answer any questions that you all have for me about the city or anything. No?
I think, and I've shared with you that the commission is really making sure that we're designating sidewalks in any new project.
Appreciate that. And I will tell you one of my focus points, and Nathan is always really good about keeping me on track about this, is that if and when US 30 becomes a freeway through Columbia City, or at the very least when we have interchanges and overpasses, that sidewalks are included as a part of that. We all have gone by heading north on State Road 9, getting up to 30 and seeing the path that's in the grass in front of Arby's. We know people are crossing there anyways, and so trying to find safe passage is really, really important. Understand it's kind of hard to get people to build sidewalks when it's a potential, but I think the potential of connectivity there is growing exponentially because of this Pell study. So I think you're going to see that a lot.
There's also a lot of foot traffic at 109.
Yes. Interestingly, just there's not as much room there, but there is pedestrian traffic that goes there. And again, I think the interesting thing is, maybe I'll say one more thing about that intersection, by the way, Plaza/Frontage Road and 109. That a couple years ago, we had some conversation with NDOT about a roundabout there. And the Indianapolis branch of NDOT came up and had said, hey, we really want to look at a roundabout here. And before they could really finish, I said, okay, that's great. I'm supportive of it if you fix 30 first. Because if you don't fix 30, you're just going to create an even bigger problem there at that intersection. Then you're just going to get everybody backing up in the roundabout. So, and Fort Wayne said, yep, he's right. So we all know what the issue is. We all know what the challenge is there. I think that stop sign is probably the most replaced stop sign in Northeast Indiana, because it is always bent over and broken. I can't imagine how many stop signs they've gone through at Plaza Drive. But anyway, so I am hopeful that US 30 is going to have a future plan of action that we can start to build around, if you will, start planning for. I know of multiple sources along multiple sites along US 30 that are literally on hold until NDOT decides what is going to happen with US 30. And so they really, in some ways, are holding our future hostage. So, and they know that, and we keep pushing. So, thanks, everybody. As you know, you can always contact me by email or phone, or happy to meet with you. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Nathan, anything else?
Just a quick update on Don Langeloh. As you know, he's not here tonight, so he's had some health issues that have kind of put him out of commission here recently. So we're kind of hopeful, and he's hopeful, the family's hopeful that he'll be recovered soon. So just kind of have him in your mind, if you would. From what I hear, he's doing a lot better than he was a couple weeks ago, so that's a good sign. But just in case you were wondering why we have an empty seat tonight.
Thank you.
Anything else, board? We're adjourned.